culture is all about setting yourselves up to win. So all the rituals, all the belief system is actually in service of like, how do I deliver amazing products, amazing value for a customer, and they can't help themselves to come back and work with you because what you're offering is just so compelling.
You're listening to What Fuels You, where we deep dive with CEOs, entrepreneurs, and business leaders to learn more about their stories and uncover nuggets of wisdom we can all use. I'm your host, Shauna Swerland, CEO of Fuel Talent, an award-winning recruiting firm based in Seattle. Today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast is Ian Wong. Ian is the co-founder and CEO of Summation, where he's building AI analysts for finance and operations teams. Ian previously co-founded Opendoor and served as CTO, and before that was the first data scientist at Square. His career has centered on one question: how can technologists use data and AI to create meaningful change in the real world? Welcome, Ian. So good to see you.
Nice to see you too, Shauna. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. I loved researching you, and I can't wait to get into Summation, but we're starting with your childhood, and I'm hitting you out of the gate with some rapid fire. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. What's the first thing you do when you wake up?
I try to go on a walk. So I'm here in
Oh,
Bellevue, and it's really nice. So I go on a walk. It's almost like a perfect mile plus little loop around the neighborhood. It's 20 minutes. It kind of gets me going for the day.
that's so smart. That's everything that people say you're supposed to do, but I'm like, I do the exact opposite. I check my phone, drink my coffee. Is there a quote that you love or that you find motivates you or helps you kind of get through hard times?
That's a good one. There's a quote. So I grew up partly in Hong Kong. So actually, Cantonese is my first language. So there's this quote
Oh,
that is in Cantonese that I keep thinking about, but it's basically like, if you're here anyway, you might as well make the most out of it, is the translation.
kind of like Carpe Diem.
Yeah, it's kind of like, if you're here, you might as well make the most out of it. So if I'm in a stressful situation, it's like, well, what else can I do? I just got to get through it. Or if
Yeah.
I'm in a good situation, it's like, oh, I should enjoy it.
Yeah. How do you say it in Cantonese?
It's like this old Chinese phrase, but it's gay zi, it's anzi. It's like totally Chinese, but it's basically like, if you're here anyway, you might as well be at peace. And
I love that. It's basically about attitude, which I think is something that is practicable. I don't know if that's a word, but I think it's such an important thing. And over the years, as I've hired employees and placed people into companies, it is something that you can't necessarily teach and something that's so important with people that you hire and just people you surround yourself with. So I love that. Okay, are you an introvert or extrovert?
definitely introvert. Get energy from spending time by myself and doing something nerdy or geeky.
And if you could have lunch with anyone, who would it be? It could be someone alive or someone who's passed.
Ooh, that's a good one. It was a bit of a controversial character, but like Elon Musk. I mean, I just want to
So,
sit
you know
down
what?
and
It's not
like,
that controversial because a lot of
yeah,
people say him.
yeah.
Either the person they most admire, they'd want to spend time with. What would you ask him?
I just want to know, like, where does he think the world's going in the next 5 to 10 years? And like, he thinks in these civilization scale timelines.
Yeah.
And so he wants to bring civilization to Mars and be a planetary species. But like, what does that actually mean for the next 50 years, 100 years, 150 years? And like,
Yeah, for our kids, basically.
yeah, like our kids, I want to know if, my kids will grow up to be able to go to, the moon and the Mars. And like, how's that going to truck? Yeah, it's just wild. Yeah.
And is there something that you would say is kind of your biggest pet peeve, either personally or professionally?
I hate being late.
And so you hate others being late too?
I'm actually, yeah, I mean, within limits, it was like a few minutes, fine, whatever. Everyone's kind of late. But yeah, if I'm late, and maybe because my mom was an air stewardess. And so growing up, like we were always early. It's just like
Yeah.
beat into me and my brothers.
Yeah, the plane is not waiting for sure. Yeah. Is there someone that you love that's like your favorite musical artist or someone that you find that you can constantly listen to, come back to?
I just listen to like electronic music when I work. I think it kind of gets me into a flow state faster. So it's a bit cliche, but like Above Beyond is
Yeah.
something that I just keep going back to. Every week there's a new track. And so yeah, that's kind of my jam.
And is there anything right now that you're listening to or reading or watching that you're like, oh, I find myself kind of constantly sharing this with others?
Well, it's funny because before kids, I used to read a lot and I was really into sci-fi. But now with kids, I like read like my daughter, she's 5, and so now my daily reading is teaching her how to read. So it's a
Yeah.
lot of Usborne, like your first set of books to learn how to read. That's literally
Yeah.
what I read every day right now.
Good night, Moon.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
love it. So you said you grew up in Hong Kong?
I grew up partly in Hong Kong and then partly in Vancouver, Canada.
Yeah. And how'd your parents end up deciding on Vancouver?
So Hong Kong was an amazing city to be in. I'm a late 80s baby. So I grew up there, late 80s, early 90s. Amazing city, super prosperous. Lots I took away from that upbringing. Then around 97, that's when Hong Kong was handed back over to the CCP. And my parents thought, they wanted to find a place that, really valued speech and capital. And so decided to leave. And Canada was a great spot. Vancouver and Canada more broadly have very friendly immigration policies. So that's where we landed.
And did you like it? Like, how would you describe it?
Very different. So Hong Kong, bustling city, super busy. I mean, it was just so interesting to be there.
How old were
And
you when you moved?
I was 10.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So you have real formative years in Hong Kong. 10 is
Yeah.
like legit. You're like fifth grade, I think.
Yep. Yep. Fourth or fifth grade. And yeah, Hong Kong was an amazing city, bustling. At one point, Hong Kong had 25% of China's GDP.
Mm.
And so it's just such an interesting backdrop to be there against, the culture of China and also just the modernization of that city. And then going to Vancouver at the time, Vancouver, and I grew up in a place called Richmond, which is a suburb of Vancouver. There
Hmm.
wasn't very much there. And so it was this really big change from
I'm
being in
sure.
a concrete jungle to, being surrounded by pine trees.
And did you speak English when you came?
A little bit in Hong Kong, the bridge was there. So in school, you were taught both Cantonese and English. But my English was really broken when I first moved to
Hmm.
Vancouver.
And how were the kids? Were they like bullying or cool or kind of did you feel like,
All of the above, right? Like fifth graders are not exactly the most, warm and kind-hearted people, especially boys. But it was all fine. Like it was great. Like I went to good schools, had great support network, and that was fun.
where are you in the birth order? Do you have siblings?
Yep, I've got two younger ones, two younger brothers, so three boys.
So they moved when they were younger. I'm curious how their experience they would share versus yours because 10 is such an important time that makes sense that it would be like
Yeah,
kind of an interesting transition.
yeah.
And what was your dad doing? Your mom was in the airline industry and what was your dad doing?
Well, my dad was doing import and export, and unfortunately, he passed when we moved to Vancouver. So yeah, I
Oh,
was
wow. Young.
single mother and three boys.
That's a lot on her. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of learned resilience very quickly that way.
Oh, I'm sure. So did you feel like you had to kind of carry the family, like be the kind of the man of the house?
A little bit. I mean, I was like all of 10 or 11 at the time. I mean, there's like, I was the oldest kid, and frankly, it was just my atomic family in
Hmm.
Vancouver. So there's a very small group of us, but like my brothers are great. My mom is a hero. So it
Yeah.
all worked out.
And who was like guiding you through kind of big decisions in high school? Because I know you went to Stanford undergrad, right?
Yep, I did.
So that's like the kind of school, obviously I mean, I've got two in college and one potentially applying soon, and it's such an incredibly prestigious and hard to get into school. And some people are like served it up their whole lives, like, here's what you got to do. But some people are like, I got to figure it out. So where did you fall into all that? Like, who was guiding you?
It was very fortuitous because no one in my family really went to college. My mom got into college after coming to Canada because that was one of her lifelong dreams.
Oh,
But
that's
no
awesome.
one's really gone to like college. And I went to this high school that wasn't actually exactly known to be an academic powerhouse, but some of my friends over summer was like, hey, I'm taking like test prep. And this was like 10th grade or something, or ninth grade. And I was honestly just bored that summer. And my mom was like, hey, your friends are taking test prep. Do you want to like go hang out with them? So I did. And so through that, journey, I met this mentor who was a retired professor from UBC, University of British Columbia. And he started actually like teaching us physics and math. And I got like really into it. I was like, oh, like this is actual physics and actual math, not like the kind that they serve in school.
Yeah, with like a little worksheet and call it a day. Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, this is like actually how you derive some of these fundamental equations from scratch. And I just like was super fascinated by that. So his name was Dr. Sun, and he was a huge mentor of mine. And then one thing led to another, and turned out I was actually pretty good at taking tests and doing a bunch of things. And yeah, I got into Stanford, and not something honestly I was expecting at all. Yeah,
How was that experience for you? If you had to do it all over again, was that the right choice?
for sure. I mean, Stanford was super generous with financial aid first and foremost. So it was actually an incredible opportunity to have an amazing education, honestly, at a price point that was cheaper than what I could have afforded, what I would have paid in Canada, which is absurd.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, they were very generous with financial aid, which is huge.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I went there, and I'd say like, so look, I thought I was good at physics. That was kind of my jam in high school. And I still remember, I tell the story, which is I remember showing up to my first physics class, like honors physics class at Stanford. By the way, I had taken physics courses at UBC at that time. So I thought like, hey, I know a thing or two about physics. And I was sitting in the second or third row, and I realized in the first class, like multiple kids in the first row knew each other. I'm like, wait, like this is the first week of school. Like, how do you guys all know each other? Well, it turned out they all went to freaking some, international physics Olympiad. They
Oh,
all
of course.
met like in the middle of Europe, like competing,
So
doing
were
like
you
physics.
having like imposter syndrome? Like, how in the hell did I end
Yeah.
up in this room?
And yeah, and that's when I realized, oh, there are levels to this game.
Hmm.
Like there are levels, and like I thought I was good, but man, there are some really smart people here. But anyway, like I thought it was such a what a gift of an experience to be at a place like that, because in any academic field, you just realize that there are levels, and it helped me appreciate what great looks like.
Yeah. And when did you kind of think like, hey, I'm more like into statistics? You got your master's in statistics, you were pursuing a PhD,
Yeah,
kind of different than physics.
yeah, for sure. So I thought I liked physics, and what I realized come junior year is like I liked the idea of being a physicist more than I liked physics.
Mm,
And what I've always liked, and this kind of dates back to my time in Hong Kong, is Hong Kong. I remember growing up, and I would ask my parents to take me to these electronics centers, and they would have these malls where they would have like endless number of gadgets that you can go, and I would like spend hours there. So I've always liked electronics and tinkering, and so I actually majored in electrical engineering because I thought, hey,
yeah.
that's kind of applied physics. I didn't know any better. But then I woke up basically junior year and said, hey, I don't like physics. I actually don't like electronics as much as I thought I did. But what I really loved is actually the math behind physics, the math behind engineering. That plus having done some internships in my college years, and then I realized actually applied math, like that's my jam. Like, and then
Mm.
I really got into it. So yeah,
During your studies, I'm not sure where along the way, but you interned at Facebook. So that had to have been like early days.
yeah. So I was doing my master's and PhD in statistics, and Facebook at the time was 1,600 people. They had a 14-person data science team, and I interned
Crazy.
on that data science team. It's funny because I thought, wow, it's like such a huge company, 1,600 people.
Yeah, at the time, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, why do you need more than like 10 data scientists, And there it was, and but that was really a huge unlock for me because that's when I realized, just like double E, which I studied for undergrad, like there are these waves of industry or waves of technology that comes and goes. And what I realized is like, what am I doing studying statistics? Like I should be doing statistics. And in fact, like statistics
Mm,
itself is changing so much because the field in my mind is still obsessed with problems that farmers had when crop fields were first a thing. Honestly, that's actually the motivation behind a lot of modern statistics. Like how do you do these kinds of like crop field experiments and like,
yeah.
estimating these quantities. And I'm like, dude, if I want to actually understand how the world felt at any given moment, I can just like count the number of happy emojis that
Hmm.
are on the Facebook platform. Like I don't need complicated, asymptotic inference. I could just
Mm,
count. And actually, the problem of the day was counting was actually really hard. It was very hard to count over petabytes of data.
interesting. Now that seems so simple, but that was so long ago.
That was like late 2010s and or early 2010s, and yeah, so I dropped out and went into industry.
So awesome. So was there a part of you that was like, hey, I want to stay at Facebook, or like did Square just, how did you even meet? I mean, it sounds like you met Keith, is it, how do
Yeah,
you say, Reboy?
or boy, yeah, Keith.
Reboy and Jack Dorsey, like crazy. Where are you meeting these people and
So
how?
I was a bored graduate student, and at the time, Quora, I'm not sure if you remember Quora.com, was the
Of
thing.
course.
And so I started answering these statistics questions on Quora. I'm like, well, I'm gonna as well make something out of my stats knowledge. And I got invited to a power user party, and Keith was a power user, and I didn't know who Keith was. So I was like, oh, you're the guy who answers all these questions on entrepreneurship. So after a couple beers, I had some like a courage, and I just went up to him like, hey, I'm dropping out of grad school because at that point I had decided I should go into industry. And I just literally asked him, hey, you got a job for me? And he was kind of taken back. He asked me who I was and you know what I do or what I studied, and he goes, you know what, I might. And so that night he emailed me and was like, hey, why don't you come to Square the office like later in the week? So I went. I met him. I met Jack. I still remember the interview with Jack is one of the most interesting interviews I've had in my life. And then
I
literally
want to
that,
hear more about that. You have to like dig into that a little. I'm always curious how people
yeah,
approach interviews. Obviously, I've been doing it for 30
yeah,
plus years, and I'm like, I don't really have any special. People are like, what's your special sauce? I'm like, I don't really have like go-to questions that I always ask.
yeah.
But some people do. What was he like?
At that time, I also didn't know who Jack was. I didn't know he started Twitter. And he was kind of in this very well dressed phase of his life. So we're in San Francisco, we're in an SF Chronicle building, and it was like 20, 30 people at the time, and all of them were wearing t-shirts. And then here Jack was wearing like a perfectly pressed, button down with a suit, right? And he walks into the room, sits me down, and he goes, Ian, what would you do if you knew about every single transaction in the world? I was like,
You're
what?
like, where do I begin?
Like, so it was very abstract. And I remember that I was just such a weird, abstract 30 minutes that I had with him. Whereas Keith was like, hey, tell me about like how you would solve this problem and like here's the data, how would you make this algorithm? Jack was much more cerebral, or at least
Mm.
abstract, yeah.
Was anyone trying to? Because I always feel like sometimes when people don't work out in jobs, I mean, obviously sometimes it's capabilities. That's the basics that you want to be able to measure, like, on a tech screen and have them whiteboard or whatever it is. But oftentimes it's like things that we were talking about, like attitude or kind of just work ethic. And some of those questions I think are just as crucial in an interview, if not more. Like, who is the person sitting in front of me? What motivates them? Especially in a startup.
Yeah, 100%. I think there is very crudely like skill and will, right? And skill, you need to have a basic bar that you need to pass. And at this point, having been at Square, started Opendoor, and now at Summation, like I've done, and you've probably done, hundreds, if not thousands of interviews at this
Yeah,
point.
for sure.
And yeah, there's a bar. Obviously, if you're hiring for a software engineer, you should know how to code. You should know like algorithms and basics, but the X factor is almost always will,
Mm,
right? Like how hungry are you? And do
hmm
you really want it?
And how are you working in teams or taking feedback or
Hmm.
what matters most to you? If you're just here trying to like get some title or some money, like you don't have that grit
Yeah,
to kind of
exactly.
go the distance. Yeah,
Yeah.
so interesting. So you're at Square, you stayed there for a short period and kind of
Yeah.
realized that the problem you came to solve didn't really need to be solved. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Well, I'd say like Square, we actually did solve a lot of things, and a lot of problems still remain to be solved.
Yeah.
But Square was great. Look, it's interesting. I joined when the company was at 40 somewhat 50 people, and they had just launched maybe 9 months prior. And so Jack and Keith hired me to be that data scientist to build fraud detection algorithms.
hmm
And I still remember showing up to work on day one and asked, look, great, I'm here. I'm here to build some algos, like show me the data. And they didn't have any fraud at the time because it was so new. Like they had like maybe like 20, 30 cases of like suspected fraud.
Yeah.
It was like not enough to build any kind of algorithm. But that was a blessing in disguise because that's when I learned, look, in a startup, you just wear all the hats. And so, like, honestly, I wasn't a software engineer by training. I was an electrical engineer and a math guy by training. And so I did a lot of software engineering, built a lot of tools for the risk team to review accounts. And at some point, there were enough transactions and enough fraud that, like, okay, then now's the actual time to bring in some ML. But that was an amazing technical journey, like building
Oh, I'm
the
sure.
review tools, the data infrastructure systems, and eventually the machine learning side of the house too.
So was it the kind of thing where you're like sitting around and you get an idea, or you're like, I've always wanted to be a founder, I got to find an idea? Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Like, and why do you, when you're at a place like Square, like most people, especially with the equity and just kind of the founding team, like wouldn't leave? What gave you the courage to do that? And where did the idea for Opendoor come from? Like, kind of one big question.
Yeah, so I'll credit my co-founders at Opendoor a lot. So my co-founders were Keith himself, Eric Wu, and JD Ross. So the four of us joined forces in 2014, but the idea came from Keith and Eric. And their observation was, look, housing is one of the largest industries in the world, especially US housing. If you look at the transactions that people conduct in their lives, the real estate transaction is the largest and most financially meaningful. And so you have this massive market. However, people hate moving. People hate the process of buying and selling a house. And if you contrast that experience with any other transaction experience you might have, like even buying a car or buying electronics or selling other kind of goods, housing is this weird outlier. Like it's 90 days of stress and uncertainty, both for the seller and oftentimes longer for the buyer. And so the question is like, why is housing any different? Why can't this be just like any other assets that you can transact in a seamless way? So Keith and Eric had this insight. And for me, like I honestly am a technologist at heart. And so I found that prompt to be super exciting and interesting. In the same way, to me, Square actually, even though I worked on fraud detection, was all about empowering any small business owner to be able to accept
Yeah. Well,
payments
I
and to
love
continue,
that when you're just like
right?
at farmer's market and they're just like, here you go. I'm like,
Yeah,
Square is a game changer.
100%. And the observation is, look, if you reduce the friction to do something, you actually enable more people to do it, right? So if you reduce the friction of accepting payments, more people can actually become entrepreneurs. If you reduce the
Totally.
friction of buying and selling a house, I think you're going to have more geographic mobility in this country. And what's more exciting to me is, to me, like it's about removing that bit of fear as you move into the next chapter of your life. Like that to me was like really inspiring, right?
Yeah.
Like people get held down because, oh man, I gotta like sell my house. I gotta figure out how to buy my next house. And yeah, like it was such a rewarding experience. My favorite stories from Open Door were always people that couldn't buy and sell a home previously, right? Maybe they physically were unable to do an open house, or maybe like they fear discrimination because then they
Hmm.
have to like, pull down all the photos from their house.
Yeah. Tell me what the business model was. Like, what was Opendoor exactly for people who don't know?
Yeah, so it's the best way to sell your house. It's the way we think about it. And the idea is, look, if you want to sell a car today, you can just sell your car through CarMax, Carvana, you can drive to a dealership. And we wanted to have that same seamless experience for people who want to sell a home. So we'll actually just give home sellers or homeowners an offer in their home. So you can log on to opendoor.com, submit information about your house, and within the same day, we'll give you an offer in your home. And if you say yes, you can sell your home within a few days. So it just turns that whole asset class from something that's like really illiquid and takes months to sell into something that you can sell in an instant.
Yeah, interesting. So, like for example, if I went on Opendoor, they would determine the offer, not it's not a like I couldn't put a won't accept less than.
You can just decline the offer. And I
Yeah,
think Opendoor's gone through a lot of changes, and I'm really excited about where it's going now. And the new product, actually, I think you can choose how much certainty you want up front. So you can there's a
interesting.
menu that's available to you.
Yeah. And what was the
Yeah.
business model? Like how did the business make money?
We bought and sold, right? So we bought a home at a certain price, and within that, we would capture a fee that we were very explicit about, and then we would sell it. and a lot of the margin came from either that and actually more importantly the services around that. So think title and escrow and basically a lot of the services around the transaction is also
Mm,
where some of the margin came from.
yeah. And I know you scaled the business to like thousands of employees, but what for you is your most exciting time in a business? Is it like in the early, and also just like the funding rounds or kind of like the proof of concept? Like where do you get your most energy? Because you've been in different stages of businesses.
Yeah, so it was four of us in the beginning. We scaled the company up to be a few thousand people. The peak was doing over 10 billion of revenue. It was like pretty substantial business. We took it public. Favorite part, honestly, it's goes back to the customers. I still remember like traveling to Phoenix and Dallas and Atlanta, and like my favorite stories are I remember, as a CTO, I had to make sure my software worked, right? And so one of the
Yeah.
software that one of our teams built was a home inspection software. And so I remember going to a home inspection for one of the customers who were about to sell to us. And this guy was just so stressed because he needed to sell the home because his father was sick in a different state and to move, but he wanted time to move because he didn't want it to cause disruption to his son's school schedule. It was very important to him and his family that it moves right around Christmas. And I could just tell that he was stressed, even though I was here to like see how the app was doing. And just like being able to spend time with him, 15, 30 minutes and like hearing his story and seeing how the impact that we're able to create in his family's life, like that's a reward.
Yeah, I love that. And it's
Yeah.
nice that you're able to stay close to the customer, even though you were kind of like the tech guy. Like, I think that's a
Yeah.
really smart business structure to stay as close to it as possible. Helps you be better at your job for sure. And how do you look at kind of when you're thinking through hiring at different stages? What attributes are most important in those early days versus when you're, scaling in your publicly traded company?
There are a couple things that are always important, which is, in my mind, again, it kind of goes back to skill and will. Like, of course, there is a set of skills that we're hiring someone for. Again, a software engineer, maybe it's a data analyst, maybe it's an operator, maybe it's someone who does customer support. So there's a rubric, right? There's that kind of what you can put down on an assessment form and figure out on paper. But to me, the most important bit is ambition and hunger, right? Like, what is it that you're looking for to accomplish in your career, in your life? And how does Opendoor or Summation align with that, right? Because there's only, in my mind, like one way to succeed, and it involves a lot of work, a lot of late nights, a lot of weekends. And it's not like all the time. I mean, that'd be unrealistic, but it can't all just be like extrinsic motivators. Hey, I'm getting paid this amount. Like, this is the status I get. It has to be intrinsic motivation. There's
Hmm.
something about the job, or there's something about the problem you're solving that intrinsically motivates you to do a good job.
Yeah, so something like you talked about will, but it's also just like how resourceful are you
100%. Yeah.
and how curious are you? Because even reading like Elon Musk's book, and he was talking about how he asked his team to move servers. I don't know if you read the same book, but and
Yeah.
they said something like, "Oh, it'll take like 3 weeks or something." He's like, "No, no, no, no. We got like 2 days."
Yeah.
And it's kind of like no. And he ends up renting like himself like a U-Haul
Yeah.
and like physically move, like where there's a will there's a way kind of thing. And
100%.
then it's
Yeah.
tough to be a leader who's like top down, like I expect that at all times, because not everybody's like that, but you definitely need your leaders to be like that.
Yeah. It's funny because one of the questions I used to ask in a technical interview, and now it's a little different because, we can also talk about like how things change in the age of AI, but
Yeah, oh yeah, we'll
uh,
definitely get into that.
yeah, because I used to ask, hey, let's build this really complicated system. And that's my whiteboard systems design question for software engineers. And let's design something really complicated. Like at the time, back at Opendoor, I give them a variation of like how would you build like a Zillow Redfin, like how you build a listing portal. And let's like think through all the details of that. And then would spend 15, 20 minutes sketching all the different systems you need. I'm like, okay, now suppose you only have a week to send up this whole thing. What would you do? And then I asked, if you only had a day, what would you do? And the point is like,
Interesting.
you need to think long term, but you need to also know what is like the shortest path to get there to deliver value.
Yeah.
So that used to be a question I asked, although now with AI, I don't know, like I guess you can do anything in minutes.
Yeah, it's like how's 30 seconds look? And what was the hardest challenge or most difficult time for you at Opendoor?
I'd say in every company, as it's going through different stages, there are always these existential crises that happens. So the beginning is always like, and it changes. Like in the beginning, it's like, is this even a thing?
Hmm.
Right? Is this like a thing that people actually want? And then there are like, variations of the product and the messaging that you have to get right to like validate that. But then once you solve that, then it's like, can you actually sell this thing? Right. So there's a lot of growth questions. It was actually, I remember there was a moment in time where, I had brought all these engineers. I had to like convince these folks to leave from like the Googles and Apples and the Squares of the world to join me, my co-founders at Opendoor, and we just didn't have any growth. And they were like, hey, dude, like I left my job to join you, but like, where's this company going? And it was tough. But then we figured out growth marketing at Opendoor. Turns out like mailers really work because we knew exactly where homeowners lived. So turns out we can literally physically send them mail. And that was actually one of the first unlocks.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, and then it
It's
was
old
like, okay,
school.
old school, like out of home, and in this case, I guess like at home. Then it was margin, then growth, and you go through these various cycles. And real estate is brutal with this.
Brutal and so competitive. Who were your competitors?
There were a couple other companies that were getting into this, what they call iBuying space. Would be it like I think Zillow tried to do this, Redfin tried to do this. I think there's a company called OfferPad that tries to do this. But honestly, just the business model itself, super low margin. It's just really tough to get right. And the biggest enemy is always status quo, right?
Mm,
It's actually not none of the competitors per se. It's the mental model of how things should be done today.
mm.
Like that's always the
Yeah,
biggest enemy. Yeah.
yeah. So tell our listeners about, I read as I was prepping
Yeah.
for today about the Monday morning problem.
Yeah. Opendoor, 9 years, great journey. Four of us, grow to be this, really operationally complex and pretty big company. So the
Mm,
thing that I was always struggling with, and it was embarrassing because I stick my whole career being this data guy, right? Like I'm a data and numbers guy. And every Monday morning, we had what we call the ELT meeting, executive leadership team meeting. And so 10 a.m., myself, the CEO, the CFO, a bunch of people with fancy titles would go into this conference room, right? And it was very basic, actually, the purpose of that meeting, which is what happened to the business last week and what should we do differently this week? It's very basic, right? And every company has a version of this. But I call this a Monday morning problem because like that's when everything starts to kind of fall apart for me. Because Monday morning, you look at the scorecard for the business, but okay, well, this is green, that's good. Well, that metric is red. Like, why is that metric red? And the analysts would have spent the entire weekend prepping for it. So they might, give you like two or three answers or like, two, three levels down as to why the number is red. But honestly, within the first 15 minutes, we would have like just decimated all these hypotheses. Right. And we'd be like asking more and more and more, like, why? Like, why is the business not performing the way we want it to in this specific area, in this specific type of houses, whatever the case might be? And that would drive me nuts because I was the CTO and I like manage the data sets. Like that's my thing. And it's so embarrassing because like I oversaw data, yet at the time and moment when I really needed that data to tell me how to operate the business, I couldn't. And so when I left Opendoor and I saw AI, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. The issue was businesses are complex, right? There's so much dimensionality to business. And I think it was like the entropy of the business would just like go to infinity if you don't kind of manage it the right way. And so I think for the first time, we're entering a world with AI where every person in a company is going to be supported by a team of agents. And so for the first time, we actually have the bandwidth through agents to actually understand the business in all its complexity and dimensionality, right? So you should be able to come to Monday morning and have a perfect diagnosis of what the problem is, right? And in fact, you should know as a leadership team, like these are the things you should be doing to course correct or to improve on your business, right? So I think that to me is like the really exciting opportunity right now with AI is actually not, I know there's a lot of rhetoric around replacing jobs. I actually think it's like the opposite. I think for the first time, a lot of us who are in these analytics roles and leadership roles, we're finally going to get the support we need to actually do our work. And that's super exciting.
And so explain how, you said kind of the one-liner elevator pitch of Opendoor. What's your kind of one-liner of what Summation does? Because it's hard. There's so much coming at me every day as a CEO from
Yeah.
like companies trying to sell me stuff around AI. And I'm listening to this and I'm like, can I use Summation? Obviously, hopefully there's other listeners who want to use Summation. So who's your target market and what does the company do exactly?
Yeah, so we deploy teams of AI analysts to support operationally complex businesses. So typically, our buyers are leaders across operations or finance, where they just have to like manage a business. And today, they don't have enough analysts to actually help them understand and diagnose the business. So that could be, say, for fanatics, their merchandising team or their planners, right? Like, what do we buy? What do we sell? What's doing well? How should we do? We think about pricing and promotion. How should we think about marketing, right? The business is very complex. There's not enough humans to look at all the numbers to help them make the optimal decisions. While with Summation, we can deploy AI analysts to support them.
So is that your kind of go-to-market plan to kind of proof of concept will be analysts and then it would be other types of solutions? Or is this like, because there's so many use cases for this, but does it mean like, hey, my kid's trying to be an investment banker, like pivot, no need. Like an analyst is my point. Like, is that going to be a job that you think will be mostly agents?
I think the world's changing, and the dawn of spreadsheets did not eliminate accountants. If anything, it created more accountants, right? If you actually survey what analysts do today and ask them how much analysis do you do, the answer is probably very little. I think what's happening in the world right now is like every employee is going to become a manager of agents, right? If your son is going to be an investment banking analyst, their job is no longer going to be hopefully cranking out comps or cranking out these Excel models, but an army of agents should be helping do that. And then the work of the investment banking analyst should be higher level and should be more strategic.
More thought leading, strategic. Yeah, that
Yeah,
totally makes sense.
yeah.
And so, are there competitors that you've found so far?
There are actually two interesting challenges. I'd say one is the current way of work. The enemy of any, I think, true startup isn't other startups.
It's the adoption of your
Is
idea.
exactly it's the status quo.
Well, and or it's like, hey, we deployed this, we sold it into, you said Fanatics. I don't know who your other clients are, customers, but a lot of people are AI curious or they've like got their kind of AI committee that they've put together,
Yeah,
but I think there's a lot of noise. And so they're kind of like analysis paralysis, like we don't really know what to do here. And it's like, well, you just kind of got to do it and you got to teach your team how to adopt it and get engaged in it. And the change management part can be probably part of the challenge too.
yeah, 100%. I think that's actually the biggest challenge right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that totally makes sense. And so you have a co-founder, just one, RC.
Yep, RC. Yep, that's right.
And how do you two know one another? And what are the kind of complementary skill sets?
Yeah, so RC and I met at Opendoor. He was part of a startup called Pro.com here in Seattle.
Hmm.
And Opendoor, we acquired Pro.com, and they had an incredible team, like amazing engineers,
Yeah.
amazing
We
operators.
worked with we worked with Matt Williams and that team at Pro
Yeah,
early days, like when they
yeah,
first, for a long time. I love Matt. They're great.
yeah. You guys did a good job recruiting for them.
Yeah.
Matt and Raji, they were great and great team. And yeah, like RC joined our engineering team, and he was just one of the best damn engineers I've ever worked with.
Yeah,
And
love it.
so when I started Summation, or when I was thinking about Summation, I immediately reached out to RC, like, hey, I've been thinking about something like this. Like, are you down? And look, he's the consummate engineer, full stack, end to end, super thoughtful, and both that 3 month solution and a 1 day solution. He can have a 3 year solution and a 1 minute solution. Like he can like
Yeah.
span the whole gamut
That's a
and thinking
unique
about,
skill set. And how are you
yeah.
liking being a CEO? Does that like what in your mind is that role and where coming into it did you feel that you had really kind of dialed in skills and areas that you were like, "Ooh, this is going to be like more of a challenge."
Yeah, look, I was a CTO by training, and my whole background's in engineering and data science. So I think the product side and the technical side we've got covered, and generally our C, myself, and the team is very technical, and we can solve a lot of really hard problems. The hard part is a bit of a cliche, but it's go to market. Right now, everyone's confused, honestly. Like, no one knows what AI means. So it's been interesting as an entrepreneur this time around because it feels like we're on a platform that's moving for the first
Mhm.
time in the last, whatever, 15, 20 years I've been working. Like, the platform's changing really fast. Like, you don't feel like you're steady on your feet, right?
Oh yeah, like there's something probably coming out right now while we're on this podcast.
Yeah. And you're aiming at a target, so to speak. Like, you're aiming to deliver value against a target that's also moving. The customers don't even know what they can do. So it's
Yeah.
just a weird
It's
point
a
where
whole
like
shit show,
you're
totally.
yeah, like shipping on a platform, you're aiming at a moving target. You're like, oh my God, like, how do I make this happen? But we're making
So
do.
how many people have you hired so far? How many are on the team?
Yeah, we're at about 35 people today. Most of us are here in Bellevue. We've got a solid team also in India and in New York as well. So we're distributed.
Nice. And so RC is overseeing the people in India, and you've got some, I'm sure, in Bellevue and New York doing the
Yeah.
kind of technical part. And then how about what kind of backgrounds and people as far as sales and marketing and even just the ops? I mean, those ops teams are
Mhm.
also at 35, you probably are now entering
Mhm.
soon, maybe HR and like some of these other areas.
Yeah. My co-founder Keith has this saying, which is barrel versus ammunition. It's a bit of a
Mm,
crude metaphor, but it's basically a gun, right? Like more ammunition doesn't let you shoot faster, right? You actually need more barrels, like people who can solve problems 0 to 1, like that self-starter, that like hungry person who is really
yes.
creative and like is just curious and wants to do more and more. I think that
Yes.
is the quintessential profile for our stage right now. And so across the board, engineering, product designs, go to
Well,
market.
even
Yeah.
even like because we've placed over the years like a ton of people who are that first kind of everything person. If you've got to go to an event, if you've got
Hmm.
to get your benefits going, they're kind of like an office manager slash maybe
Hmm.
executive assistant to the CEO, but they sometimes even morph into HR and then they morph
Yeah.
into COO eventually. I mean, I've seen that happen if you get that raw talent of somebody
Yeah.
really bright and curious and capable, that's kind of the dream job for somebody who wants to be a Swiss Army knife and is smart.
Yeah. Totally.
To me, I love that stage of the game. Like the 35 employees, I think it's so perfect. And how'd you come up with the name Summation? Was it easy to get?
No, there's a whole it was 100 emails over three over 3 months for us to get submission.com. It's funny, our founding kind of investor, Chetan, we went to school together. He's at Benchmark, and he was like, Ian, whatever company name you pick, it's all good. Just make sure you get the .com. And so,
It's hard to get
like,
.coms these days.
yeah, it was hard. But
I
anyway,
mean,
I
really
yeah,
hard. Yeah, good for
yeah,
you. And I mean,
yeah.
your investors, so what was that fundraising experience like? You've obviously, I'm sure, been in the room finding investors in the past, but you got such incredible Kleiner and Benchmark. I mean, so badass.
It's really a privilege being a repeat founder
Oh
because to your
yeah,
point
for
about
sure.
having a bit of credibility. And so no, I think both Chaitin and Josh from Kleiner reached out proactively, and it was very much of a conversation more than like a traditional formal pitch meeting. Because look, I've, for better or for worse, been around the block a little bit now to understand like actually behind all the firms are just a collection of people.
Of course. And but also you're thinking, okay, so now I'm going to have to deal with this person. Am I going to like run when the phone rings or are they going to actually lift me up when things are feel shitty? And who are they going to introduce me to? Like what value are they going to bring? What are they going to be like as a board member? It's a big decision. I mean, aside from the prestige of those names, it's like who specifically in those companies am I doing business with?
Yeah, it's a hire you can't fire.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough one and I've heard so many great stories and obviously we've all heard a lot of horror stories.
Yeah, and so yeah, I've been lucky. I've known Chaitin since school actually, which helps a lot.
Yeah,
And I've
that's
gotten to know
awesome.
Josh a lot better, and it's they're both amazing.
Yeah, very cool. And so, how far into the business are you, and what is like your biggest challenge or opportunity right now that's kind of keeping you up at night?
As a company, we are now a little over 2 years old. We are now deployed across real adoption across multiple companies, across multiple teams, in many cases, daily active usage. So something that was surprising to me because we're talking about a tool that finance and operations teams might use initially. I'm like, well, maybe, people log in once a week, but no, like people are having sometimes epic 3 hour long sessions with our analysts trying to diagnose some part of their business. The hardest part, is honestly what we were talking about earlier, which is AI is still so new. It's kind of hard to sometimes pull ourselves out of the bubble, right? Again, like summation, I've always thought about like, okay, companies need this summation layer to the business to understand, help them understand what's happening,
Yeah, what's the bottom line?
right? Like, what's the bottom line? What should I do? And so while that thesis addresses the real need, people are so, I think, all of us are trying to figure out what does AI mean? And in this world, what's interesting is, classically you would survey customers like, hey, what are your pain points? And you would kind of like design prompts to solve those pain points. Today, like they don't know what their pains are. Like
Yeah.
part of their pain is confusion.
Everybody wants a dashboard of like, tell me where to
Yeah.
turn.
Yeah. But like now it's like the pain is like, I'm confused. I'm confused by AI.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it's actually, in my mind, like the challenge, like how do you stick the goalpost and help actually rally people into this new category of software that's emerging, right? So that category creation and actually like educating the customer as to what post AI means for their team. That's the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so is it important to you that every customer, as far as like the actual human that you're selling into, is pro AI? I mean, they have to be engaged and they have to want to use it. Sometimes I see, like we've talked about noise and kind of the confusion, but sometimes it's almost like AI is creating more noise, not just because people are selling it into us, but because
Mhm.
I'm talking to companies where they're trying so many different things at once
Yeah.
and trying to kind of boil the ocean. And then people get kind of like turned off and agnostic, like, I can't fucking deal with this. Like, I'm over
Yeah.
it. I'm so curious how long we're going to be in this stage of this journey.
Yeah. Look, we sell to enterprises.
Yeah.
And in an enterprise, you'll have just a spectrum of reactions.
Well, and just the bureaucracy too, and just even getting through like procurement and the just all the BS. I mean, we sell into startups and enterprise is just a way longer sales cycle.
Yeah.
Startups, I'm like talking to the founder the next day, we get someone hired. It's like I mean, I
Yeah.
do like enterprise because it's stickier, longer
Yeah.
term business. It's more predictable for us, but it's harder to get those across the finish line because you like, who's the decision maker here?
Yeah. So the good thing is, I think, especially at the executive level who we sell to, some of them are intrinsically motivated to try AI, and some of them feel a lot of extrinsic pressure to like use AI.
Yeah,
So for
coming
better or for
from their
worse,
CEO and yeah,
yeah, exactly. But the best folks are always the AI pilled folks. Like they
yeah,
see it. Like they see like, okay, there's something here that like is fundamentally transformative. And they need to be senior enough to then be like, okay, I need my team, whether they like it or not, to move towards this feature. Like that's the
100%.
magic, right? Like you need
Yeah.
someone, a champion that's senior enough.
Yeah. And so it integrates with kind of anything and everything.
So we integrate with a lot of their customers' popular kind of data sources and external sources. So like all your cloud data warehouses or data lakes or ERP
Yeah.
systems. We actually can do quite a bit of data stitching through AI to make your data more cohesive to query against. We've spent a lot of energy making that data layer better. And then from that data layer, our analysts can then do analysis and forecasting and planning and optimization and the whole suite of things that analysts do.
That's amazing. And as far as your like leadership, how would your teams that you've worked with over the years describe you? And I guess what would you say is your Achilles heel or areas that you're trying to improve about yourself?
Yeah. It's funny. I think if you ask different people at different times, they would have a very different read of me. I'd say number one, I hope most folks I've worked with will say that I care a lot. And I generally, maybe the more correct term is I'm obsessed.
Passionate.
I'm really obsessed with solving the problem well, and I'm obsessed with winning.
In general in life, are you competitive? Like when you're playing whatever, a game or a sport?
No, just in like business, I
Yeah, when you're
am.
just like, you know that you're smart, you know you're capable, so you're like, well, like, why not be the best? Like
Yeah,
if we're going to be
100%.
like your whole thing, like if we're going to do this, let's do this.
Yeah, let's freaking do it. Like
Yeah,
don't
totally.
half-ass it.
100%.
I think like look, culture and like management is all in service of like winning. Not to say like, look, obviously I take care of the team and everything. I'm not saying like, I'm this weird dictator, but I think all of us join a team to win. Like no one joins a freaking team to like lose.
Yeah, you don't want to be on the losing team.
No, like we're here in a company to lock arms to work with the best people we can because we're gonna freaking, take over this market and like be the champion.
Yeah,
There's no ifs and buts about that. So in my mind, this weird analogy was like cultures, it's all about setting yourselves up to win. So all the rituals, all the belief system is actually in service of like, how do I deliver amazing products, amazing value for a customer, and they can't but help themselves come back and work with you because what you're offering is just so compelling.
100%. And so the caring part, and then what else? The competitive. I mean, I understand that part. What about areas that you're trying to kind of like if someone was giving you a 360 feedback and they were like, God, he drives me crazy this thing, or he's lame in this area.
Yeah.
We all have them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the feedback I've gotten, and actually I've learned to, one thing that I've learned is actually like just accept who I am and actually built systems that allow me as a founder to be productive because I actually think it's all about maximizing my strengths versus minimizing my like versus trying to like recoup my weakness, so to speak,
I'm a
right?
person who's no one's going to give me the like
Yeah,
directions to the IKEA box to like put
yeah,
together furniture. I'll never be good at that. I don't need to try to get good at that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
no,
yeah,
100%.
I mean, I'll name one thing that I've gotten a lot of negative feedback on in the past, but now I realize it's just how I operate, which is like I like dive into the details.
Yeah.
Like I really dive into details because and there's this weird allergy to it, I think in tech for the last many years, and I think that attitude's changing because it can come across as not empowering you with autonomy. But actually, in any kind of job, like inspection is actually just part of the job requirement. Like you should actually allow yourself and your work to be inspected.
Oh, 100%. And you don't want anyone there who's like ego is more important than like getting it right for the customer.
Yeah, and so where I think I've fallen down as a leader in the past is to set the wrong expectations around the requirement to show your work and actually to have these really open, honest debates down to the bits, so to speak.
Mm,
Right. And actually
yeah.
that is actually all about expectation setting. And I do think like one of the things I've hopefully gotten better at is to set those like, hey, this is just how we operate.
Yeah. I'm learning a lot right now. Like, and I've done a lot of these, but I think you're fierce and I'm so excited to watch you like continue to crush this business. I'm literally taking notes because I've had a couple of like mid-year conversations in this past week, and I'm realizing like I'm definitely not a micromanager, but I see my job as like a sweeper. Like
Mhm.
I've got 50 different things moving. Like as a parent, you're thinking both kids and the business and your wife and all the different moving parts. And I think of myself as the CEO of like touching every aspect of the business.
Yeah.
And it's not in a details like maniacal way, but it's like oh, if I catch that, you can lose trust real quick that you're like, wait, if this has gone wrong, what else could have gone wrong? If I hadn't
Yeah.
looked at that, that's like not a good thing. I have a Slack channel called like shit gone sideways. And I'm like, if any client is the opposite of like thrilled with us, because I'm oftentimes selling, and if I'm saying to a friend or a CEO, like, hey, this is what you can expect to get as far as, service and results from
hmm
Fuel, and if that doesn't happen, I want to know about it. Even if it's like the
hmm
smallest thing, like a candidate was late to an interview. Like it's important because
Yeah,
I'm putting my name on it. And yet that's how you probably feel about your business. It's like, no,
for
this is my
sure.
baby.
And like in the early days, like Apple computer famously, like every engineer like wrote their name, like not
Yeah.
just engineer, every person at Apple like signed their name at the back of the computer they put out. Like that's how I feel about what we're building.
But how you bridge that also with scale. That's the key is like with that fine line of like, when's detail too much? And when am I like, hey, that's not the CEO's job? Because you couldn't get to the things that are your like highest and most important things, which is recruiting and
Yeah.
raising money and all the things that you obviously need to do. Well, I'm excited. You're off to the races and I'm psyched to keep watching you build this thing. My final question for you is what fuels you?
A bunch of things fuel me, but I'd say now that I have young kids, they fuel me. Like it's kind of the circle of life. Like, I
Yeah.
saw my parents raise me, and with the resilience and persistence that they brought to the table, and yeah, why not instill that to my kids too?
Thank you for listening to the What Fuels You podcast. If you'd like to check out past episodes to hear from more business leaders, go to fueltalent.com/podcast. And if you have a minute, please leave a review and rating on your favorite podcast app, or share this episode with a friend or colleague. Please share any feedback or interview suggestions for other guests by sending a message to podcast@fueltalent.com. I'm Shauna Swerland, and thanks again for listening.